What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday to you, and welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam, gaming, and getting into fights on Twitter. I am your host, Steven, aka Midnight Hatter, and joining me, as always, is Adam Blue. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing good. Yeah, the fights on Twitter, they can be funny. I like to try to avoid that, but sometimes there could be some good entertainment that comes out of that.
So we're going to get into it as today's episode goes on, but I think that it actually provoked some interesting conversation that you and I have had in the past where, we've talked about Gundam games and the sort of, what makes the quintessential Gundam video game, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's going to be because you and I always tend to have a positive spin on things, even when there's drama involved. But yes, welcome to episode 101. This is 101 episodes of Midnight Hatter Live.
Wow.
So it's a big milestone for us. I can't believe I missed episode 100 last week.
Yeah. I can't believe I didn't even think of that either. Yeah, because it's awesome.
Yeah. So we've been at it for a while, and today's episode is actually brought to you by our friend Unusualless Pyro. I can't pronounce things today, but his links are down in the description. He's a Patreon supporter, friend of both of our channels. You might see him in the chat here later on. He's been streaming pretty regularly this month for Space Month. So Twitch streamer, often does tabletop RPGs, Gunpla builds, things like that. So yeah, give him a look. And again, this show's brought to you by you guys. I don't want to do ad reads for Raid Shadow Legends or anything like that. So, like I said, every week I'm going to shout out a Patreon member or supporter on one of the various channels. Cool. So, if you are a supporter, reach out to me if you want your links, promoted. So, that said, obviously you guys saw the thumbnail, you saw what we're playing. We've got some familiar faces in the chat here. I've got Ultronimus, Talos, Goose, Johnny Tacoma, Rogue New Type. Looks like Robert's in here as well. Everyone, and Zeonic Shadow. Nice. How could I forget? So everyone's excited about Zeonic Front, right?
Oh, of course. In fact, I think I played just a little bit of it because I did a video where I was just talking about the lore behind it. And I tell you, it seems like a tough game. So I'm gonna be interested to see how you go about it, because this is one I need to play through eventually and beat. So I might have some questions as I watch you.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's been a while since I've played it, but yeah, we're gonna have fun with it. There is a bit of a learning curve to it. It's a very old school style tactical shooter in the vein of something like Rainbow Six. So, but yeah, I remember watching watching you play it, and I think you were kind of fighting with some emulator issues too, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, good point. I think that was another thing that turned me off from wanting to play it emulated, was because it was something to do with textures or something. I forget, or it's so maybe I can go back and try to tweak it. But if to get the best experience, I might just get a PS2 again.
Yeah. I'm thinking about investing in the new PS2 upscaler that came out. It's an upscaling kit where you can convert your old PS2 into an HDMI out, and it upscales from 720 to 1080. I have an artificial upscaler, so there might be some graphical issues going on. I am actually playing on old school hardware, so
that's awesome. The way to do it. In fact, I saw another video recently where you can further modify the PS2 easily with that Wi-Fi adapter, the Ethernet adapter, and there's a way you can add an SSD drive easily to that then interacts, and
that's awesome. So and they're very affordable considering the level of upgrade kits that on the market. I think it's under $200 for that.
Yeah, but it's cool stuff.
Yeah, we're going to be piloting some Zaku's today. And speaking of Zaku's, you showed off a new Zaku variant, because we don't have enough of those, let's be honest.
We don't.
The Zaku Gunner.
This is really cool. This is the Gunner type. It's from the Stardust Memory Phantom Bullets manga. And again, the thing about it is it's a Zaku 2, classic Zaku 2, but it just has enough interesting little things about it where it's just like a shield, a Xeon shield. I love that. And then obviously the big old the big old gun. So yeah, videos up on the channel, little review, pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely go check that out. It's a Robot Spirits, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
So yeah, go check that out after the stream because it's pretty sweet looking.
Yeah.
And like I said, you can't have too many Zaku variants.
You can't. No.
All right, so let's hop into our screen share here. Man, I don't think I could have timed that any more perfectly. We are right here on the start screen. I'm gonna manually fade the audio in because I am, nervous about blowing people's eardrums out. So give me a shout if you think the audio is too loud or messed up or anything like that.
Now, are you doing okay, you're loading what is this? So is this loading like where you've beaten it, but you have things unlocked or like
Yeah, so I actually don't think that I've unlocked everything in the game because I don't have Amuro as a pilot. Spoiler alert. You can
oh,
unlock Federation
sweet.
pilots in the simulator mode. I do have Sayla as a Gundam pilot, which
Oh,
is
that's
pretty cool.
awesome.
Like I love the fact that this is one of the earliest examples of Sayla being able to pilot the Gundam in a video game or just in Gundam in general, right?
That's cool.
So here
I
in
mean, other
the
than I guess later on it would have been what, the Dynasty Warriors
yeah,
in
probably
the
that,
games?
or
Yeah.
any of the games where I guess you can choose a pilot and a suit independently of
Oh,
one
true.
another.
That's right, yeah.
So this looks like a save game that I have beaten it 3 times.
Oh,
And
sick.
so let's see. Would you guys rather see missions or simulator missions? Like would you rather go story mode or go to the simulator and
Here's my idea. Do a mission. Just do one of the missions and then maybe a simulator and we can look at the options and maybe choose a cool scenario.
sounds good. So it looks like this is going to be mission 2 breakthrough. So the first mission, I think that we actually played this together on stream maybe like last year because it was that first mission where you're piloting the Zaku's and you see the big tray at the end of the level.
And there's the forest or the trees, right? And you're trying to like discern where mobile suits are.
That's right. Oh, so I hear people are saying it's kind of low audio, so I just bumped it up a little bit to keep it good. So our mission this time is to destroy the enemy gun turrets that are still putting up fierce resistance, destroy the gun turrets, but watch out for the fighter copters that are hounding our allied Magella attack units. Okay. So as always, we're going to go into our team setup, and so now I think it's probably an appropriate time to talk about the the Twitter drama, right?
Oh yeah.
And this is oh, go ahead.
No, I said that it was pretty interesting because I think Ollie Barter was just bringing up something that had to do with 0081, and you had replied saying like that 0081 game is like your the best PS3 Gundam game or your favorite at least.
Yeah, which
And
as you and I have talked about, classic stating an opinion as fact.
oh
No. Well, and it's because of the new G-Line standard model kit that's coming out on P Bandai. So
oh yeah, because it was that introduced in that game.
it was, yeah, that's one of the mobile suits that was original to that game, Senki 0081.
That so I wonder what were the chances of Sony then releasing 0081 on PlayStation Network?
Now that could be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm actually going to go with the machine gun here.
And are you choosing things that you've unlocked or
Yes. So this being a new game plus, I think normally you would only have access to Rower and Austin, and they would probably have not as good mobile suits, but because we have all of the Midnight Fenrir team unlocked, we can use the rookies, Roberto and Hepner, Swaggard, which sometimes you see his name pronounced and spelled in different ways, like Lee Swag, like Swagger, Swaggard, things like that.
He's just got swagger. I think that's
he's just
what
got
they're trying to
swagger.
say.
But you know, I'm gonna be honest with you. In high school, I had the biggest crush on Sophie Fran, so we're gonna be using her DOMs, and
Cool.
rower, we're gonna be using the Zaku 2 F2 because, I mean, come on, that's the best Zaku 2 variant out there. And then Manning, we can go ahead and set him up with some Goof Customs.
Okay.
Now we are gonna have to equip him with some, I guess, upgrades here.
Interesting.
Let's see. So yeah, Ali Barter was giving a shout out to Senki 0081. I said that it is obviously the best the best Gundam game on PS3, to which he quote tweeted and put in the article that he wrote, you know, years and years ago, talking about how great Gundam Extreme Versus was. Now, have you played any of the Extreme Versus titles, Adam?
Yeah. I've dived into like the Versus series to get an understanding, because when I first played a Versus game, it was just the Versus one, which I think was just a North American release on PS4.
Mm-hmm.
I guess get people into it. And the first thing it reminded me is Virtual On, or those kind of older, you know, Japanese arena fighters, which. So that's my main thing with something like Versus. As fun as they are, it's a specific type of game. It's
right.
It's only Gundam in visuals.
Really. It's Gundam
it's
in
like
name
Dynasty
only.
Warriors Gundam. Like your Dynasty Warriors Gundam is there for the Gundam visuals. It doesn't play. You can't say, oh, that plays like Gundam. It doesn't. That's not a thing.
Yeah, and you and I have had those kind of conversations where it's like, what is it that makes a Gundam game? Because there's a lot of reskinned games, like Gun Evo is basically like a reskinned Overwatch with Gundam.
Yeah, it's a hero shooter. Yeah, and so the point, I was trying to make, because anyway, I thought it was kind of dismissive of like the kind of like no, like the response, and that's the weird thing with Twitter. It's like. Maybe I take things too seriously sometimes. You know, I like to joke around, but it's like someone will say something on Twitter, so I'll be like, "Oh, well, blah blah blah," and then people will be dismissive of a response. It's like, well, was that person looking for a response? If not, why did they post? So, should I even bother replying to anyone on Twitter? Like, that's where I've kind of gotten to. Even though like someone could be just saying it in fun, I still feel like, okay, it looks like something could have come out of this conversation, but it just got, stalled by someone not wanting to take the time to respond. And so I was just a little confused, especially someone that is sort of a connoisseur of Japanese mecha anime and Gundam. I thought it would be a cool way to continue that conversation, but hey, you can just read the Forbes contributor articles, since, nearly anyone can be a Forbes contributor.
Exactly. Well, and that's, again, I have nothing but respect for Ali Barter, because he's been doing the damn thing since most of y'all have been in diapers. He is he's one of those like OGs that's been kind of I guess singing the praises of Gundam and other mecha anime in the West for quite a long time. So I would never say anything, of course, to challenge his authority on matters.
Exactly. I've learned so much about mecha anime from his lists, and maybe I'll share them later. I've bookmarked a bunch of his recommendations.
Oh, really?
Actually, you know what? I got to say, this looks good. Like, I feel like the shading for this PS2 game, the lighting is done really well.
Not too bad.
And it could be maybe the blurred nature of a PS2 game, over the capture card, but yeah, it doesn't look bad.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about, I think was it on the N64 they did, tricks using the CRT TVs to make the textures look muddy intentionally, right? And
right.
So it doesn't look good when it's been scaled up, but it looked good on at the time.
Yeah, because I think they used this aliasing effect where it would be like a feathered pixels of the polygons. And yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
If you're not using scan lines from a CRT, you're just seeing that feathered blurry mess. But with the scan lines, it almost evens it out and fills it.
Yeah.
Dude, this is looking sick.
Oh, blue leader down. Looks like green leader got taken down real quick too. So it looks like the only ones left are red leader, which means my girl Sophie. There we go. All
Okay,
targets
well,
destroyed.
oh, there you go.
It's amazing how much easier
So
this game is when you use a Dom.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, like, what helps? Is it how you're kitting out your other troops?
Yeah, definitely that helps. And if you have foreknowledge of like where certain events are supposed to happen, I think that there is actually a setup to where you can take out when you're playing in like the Jabro mission, for instance, there's a setup where it's like you intentionally let yourself get shot down, but you send Lee Swaggart and Sophie Fran in their DOMs to go behind where your enemies are attacking. This game is extremely tactical when it comes to like positioning. You're attacking an enemy straight on is a 50-50. Like if you shoot first, you're gonna win. If you get shot first, you're gonna lose. So it's really just the range of your weapon matters more than anything. But when you are attacking from behind, everything's a one-hit kill, including on you.
Oh, that's okay. So that's cool because I noticed at the beginning it was almost showing like a I guess the most efficient path to get to the objective. And so I
Yeah.
guess the idea is taking in consideration coming across troops and where to get to them. That's pretty neat. It's very tank-like. It reminds me of like playing tank-based games. I can't even really think of one right now, but the whole where you're aiming or like an RTS. I remember you'd have to position to attack tanks from behind.
Yeah, it's positioning is important. Your radar, whichever radar you choose to use, is important because you have 3 radar types. Which is this is so cool because this is that sort of lore building stuff that you and I love so much. Where it's like your 3 radar types are sonar, radar, and thermal. Thermal has the shortest range, but is the most effective because you see heat sources. Radar has a medium range, but is super ineffective because it gets jammed by Minovsky particles easiest.
Oh, yeah.
Sonar has the widest range, but only tracks moving enemies. So if there's a stationary enemy, you're not going to be able to pick it up.
Wait, so is Minovsky only a deterrent to radar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's that, and then of course you can design your own routes. That takes forever. There are like predetermined routes that you can set up. Clearly, I have not beaten the last Fang 2. But yeah, as you can see here in the simulator, we have some Federation missions. Those ones are pretty easy to manage because you get to use Gundams, right?
Are any of them based on like scenarios from any of the shows, or is it like made up objectives and stuff?
I would say loosely because I think this one, Burning Sands, is actually based on the Ramba Ral fight.
Oh,
I think.
Okay. Well, let's see. Now, how are the controls?
Oh man, they are incredibly stiff.
But does it stand up to today?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. It's very reminiscent of like a GBO2 type, like a mech sim, as opposed to like as opposed to something that's like floaty and fast, kind of like an arena shooter, like or not an arena shooter, but like an arena fighter, like Versus.
Yeah. Well, are you using the D-pad or the analog stick to move your character?
You use the analog stick to move your character because the D-pad are your commands, so you can actually command your allies. So yeah, let's see. We've got our Mudrock Gundam. Use Kai in the gun cannon, Ayato in the gun tank, Sayla in the Gundam, and then this is pretty cool because each of the Midnight Fenrir pilots gets their own Federation suit that they can use. So it's like Rower gets the ground Gundam. Austin uses the ground GMs. Roberto uses the GM standard. I do see now. I'm starting to hear that echo. Maybe it's on my end.
Oh, yeah. Let me know if
Yeah.
that could be me somehow.
Gun cannon mass production type. GM Sniper 2. Gundam ground type. You have to have at least 3 people that can have Gundam ground types so that you can have the Gundam ground team, right?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
But yeah, the only downside of using some of these Gundam types is obviously you don't get to have 3 units with you. You only get the 1 unit. Whereas...
Oh, you only get 1 additional unit with you?
So when you select these teams, they can either come as 1 unit or a set of 3. So, like, for instance, Austin comes with, 2 wingmen.
I see. Oh, okay, that's neat. But is that like OP, or is there things in place that levels it out?
I think that
Is it because they're GMs and not a Gundam,
yeah,
for instance?
Exactly.
Okay.
Which is kind of what I've always wanted to base, like, what I've always wanted to base a tabletop game of Gundam off of is like, okay, if you have like a GM or a Zaku, you're only gonna get you're gonna get 3 units associated with that team, and you play that as a team as opposed to being like a single mobile suit. But then obviously Gundams and things get preferential treatment, and they only get the 1 unit.
Okay. Well, let's see.
But yeah, like I said, to that end, discussing, like we said, what makes a Gundam immersive experience, it is a matter of opinion, right? Because to a lot of people, and I'm sure like New Type Seiji would agree that like Gundam Versus is the quintessential Gundam experience, and some people would say, no, it's actually Rise from the Ashes. Since you're literally immersed inside of the cockpit.
That's true. I think what Versus does well Gundam-wise is management of your weapons, which is kind of like, I think the one main thing I've noticed throughout a lot of Gundam games is there's that weapon management. Because sometimes, sure, maybe you can run out of ammo, but a lot of times games have different ways to resupply, or sometimes it's a matter of cooldowns, where it's, managing the different weapons you have. I think that's kind of so in the Versus games, there's a little bit of that, but at the same time, I feel like it's a specific genre, like a hero shooter. Like,
yeah,
it's not doing anything Gundam-like. It's just, but that's interesting, because who knows if that's how someone got into Gundam.
Very true.
Just from playing something like that. But I think, okay, so let's talk about, what are the 3 core mechanics that would make something feel like a Gundam game? I had mentioned weapon management, but maybe we can go from that. The other thing I would think would be not that it has to be slow movement, but more deliberate movement.
That's a very good way of saying it. And I think that that's the primary difference between, say, Gundam versus Zeta Gundam, a PS2 title, versus the Gundam Extreme Versus, is that the movement isn't, it's very deliberate. It's just not, I always describe the Extreme Versus games as being kind of floaty.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like the Twitch floaty type, where, because it's really, I guess it's more about movement management than it is about combat.
Right. Yeah, and timing, I would say, as well. Ooh.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, even the Gundam can get felled with a single hit from behind.
I gotta say that there's something about the way this looks, and I don't know if it's because it's shared over a stream, but like, it looks really good. I don't know what it is. I think the lighting. I feel like sometimes, and GBO2 suffers from this, where it's too washed out, like the colors.
Oh, yeah.
This seems to have a better contrast.
Yeah, I think that again, it's just down to the um, the game design sort of philosophy at the time, where it was we're going to concentrate on particular effects and not get too caught up in graphical fidelity. I think that that's like a big deal these
Oh,
days, right? Like where everything has to be hyper realistic, and that's why we love Unreal Engine so much, is that it's you can get those like hyper realistic details, but that kind of graphic, those kind of AAA graphics are not indicative of a good game, or even b good like appearance. I think a lot of times
exactly.
you look at like cartoony graphics and they benefit because they actually help the player understand where things are. I know that a lot of people were complaining about the Resident Evil 4 remake having yellow paint splashed over everything because they had to
Oh,
indicate,
yeah.
and that's what
With the
happens when you have like a
yeah.
muddy, background that's all hyper realistic. You don't know what you can interact with and what you can't. Um,
And when graphics are super realistic, like I'm all about the PC gaming having cutting edge graphics, and you turn up stuff all the way, it starts to look like a very overproduced plasticky thing.
oh,
Whereas I think you bring, man, this looks insane.
there's a lot
Because
going
you
on
brought up
screen here.
um the effects being kind of a better way to hide or show portray something rather than it just looking real.
Yes. There's just different, and again, it all comes down to the philosophy that you're trying to adhere to, whether you are going for something that is supposed to be super immersive, or maybe you want it to be, um, I mean, it could just be about playability.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Oh
we've
man, this does look
mastered the
good. I
use of
am
the
playing
Gundam
this
here.
tonight.
I, it is so amazing how much faster the Gundam is than those Zaku's.
Yeah.
But then these Doms come speeding in, and it's like they end up getting behind me before I can even lock onto them.
I love that the way they look.
Uh,
Damn.
and then this is another thing. So you mentioned like weapon management, ammo management.
Oh yeah.
Those are things that are quintessential to Gundam games. What's interesting about Zeonic Front is that as you probably know, you don't actually control which weapon you attack with. It is all done for you automatically. Like if you are, what, and it looks like there's a glitch in the game because my beam saber is still out. Do you see that?
Oh yeah. That's funny.
I'm still like in mid swing of beam saber. That is
Hey, and this
some.
isn't emulated, right? This is PS2 hardware.
This is authentic glitches. Glitches are all as intended. This is the true Gundam experience. But oh my gosh, I'm definitely getting pincered here. But
Dang,
yeah,
that
I mean,
that
you
looks
look at something
cool.
like GBO2, where you have to be very deliberate about your weapon choice,
Yeah.
and this is something that I personally love about Senki 0081, and I know that a lot of people probably disagree with this. One of the things that's like I think is better than, say, a Gundam Versus title is that even in Gundam versus Zeta Gundam, my favorite of the Versus titles, you have like automatic ammo refills. Whereas you and I, when we've played 0081 together, when you run out of ammo, all you've got is your melee weapon. Like there's no,
Yeah.
you know,
And unless you go travel back to the um if it's in each level, I forget the headquarters where you like duck next to the
yeah,
or you crouch.
you have like
Yeah,
little
next to the
resupply
little
points.
yeah.
So I think that that's a cool mechanic personally, because I feel like that's more immersive than,
Yeah, because it's not where you're running out of ammo. I mean, you are, but you can still get some back. Like, I like that. Like,
yeah.
I feel like sometimes running out of ammo is super arbitrary. Like, sure, it's more realistic to only have a few shots in a gun and then it's gone or whatever. But for a video game, make it where there's a mechanic of managing your ammo. Not that it's like scarce and hard to find. Like Resident Evil games, like although I think they did a good job with the 4 remake. where it didn't seem like that big of an issue. There was always something, but you still had to manage it.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that that's probably one of the biggest weaknesses of the new Resident Evil remakes is that they took away save management as a mechanic, right?
yeah, that's interesting because it's almost like I feel like save management added a layer of stress
Oh yeah.
that doesn't exist. So last night I was playing a Castlevania game on Steam, but it was like the advanced collection. So it's like official from Konami and everything.
Oh sweet.
Now you still have to go to save rooms in Castlevania,
Yeah.
but there was also if you press the left trigger an ability to have a save state at any time. And I was like, oh wow, that kind of takes away the whole, oh, I don't want to die here, I don't want to die here, and then I have to. So
Yeah.
that's
I
a
mean, sometimes it's nice to it's nice to have the option, right? Like if you want to
Yeah.
play on hardcore difficulty where saves are limited and you know like there's I guess I don't remember in Alien Isolation you could save anytime you want, you just had to be at one of those phone booths, right?
Yeah, because I remember, you know what? Yeah, and I think if you saved, it reset the room. Because I think I remember I would just try to run to a Yeah, that's right.
You're
It got
like,
to a
please
point
save,
where I
please
realized
save,
I could
please save, please.
no, that's I remember it got to a point when I was playing that where I just knew, okay, as long as I can run to the save spot,
Yes.
I can F up the whole way, but if I get saved, then I'm fine. And I think, yeah, that's where the game kind of fell off for me as I realized it became a save management game. It was like, as long as I could save, then it resets the alien.
Yeah, that's not cool.
But I could deliberately play it to be like, well, let me try to get to the save without triggering the alien, or I can spend half the time just trying to get to the save spot and not dying and then repeat if needed. That's always a weird balance where you can like game the game.
Yeah, I
Should
wish
you?
that it didn't reset the room because that makes a huge difference. Like if you're in alert phase, or they do the thing where like well, I don't know, that might be too much where it's like you can't save while there's enemies nearby or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so okay. So if we were to talk about mechanics, the top 3 mechanics of a Gundam game, I think it's the kind of deliberate movement, weapon management, which they kind of go hand in hand because you have to set up your movement to use your weapons and manage that probably almost just like in the shows. If you realize a lot of times it's like, okay, what weapon do I need to use when? And like,
Yeah.
how should I position myself? Like, there's a lot of that when the mobile suits are fighting anyway. So then what would be like a third mechanic that makes a Gundam game a Gundam game?
Well, you and I might disagree on this, but
Okay.
I would say new type shenanigans
Okay,
because
give me an example.
yeah, I'm trying to think of like mechanically how that would work because so far I don't think that there has been a Gundam video game where new type abilities are a thing, has there?
The only thing I can think of is the using like the bits
Mm-hmm.
or the funnels, but even the wire guided ones work the same way, so it's not like it's a different mechanic.
Yeah. So it would be interesting to come up with a way, because I think that would probably set apart any Gundam game from any other type of video game. Is like, and
Yeah, that's a good
I know
point.
that there's kind of like a heated discussion about whether or not new types are cool in Gundam. Personally, I think that they are part of it's part of the story. It's part of the lore. You kind of have
Yeah.
to have new types, whether you like them or not. But I don't know. What do you think? Is
Yeah, it's
there?
kind of the reason for some of the conflict is the evolving man in space.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, if there were to be like new type abilities in a Gundam game that feels Gundam-like, I think it would be maybe a matter of if it's single player, maybe some sort of um, time stop, slow down, kind of like Max Payne.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a
Um,
bullet time effect, or
yeah, exactly.
and this is one of those things. So I recently watched a video about how, oh no, I didn't protect my allies. I was so busy skirting around and taking out enemies, I forgot to protect the tanks. So I watched a video recently about how Mortal Kombat 2 and 3 used input tracking in order to cheat against players. And what they would do is, for the first couple levels of Mortal Kombat, first couple of fights, they just let you get away with whatever you want. But then, as you start playing, the idea is it's an arcade game. They want you to keep chugging quarters into it. And so they read the inputs of the player, and there was like a random percent chance that the enemy fighter would just override whatever the player was doing. So it's like you might land an uppercut, and then all of a sudden you're going to get grabbed and thrown. And it's like you can literally watch the animation of like you connect with the uppercut and you get thrown anyway. Now, at the time, that sounds cheap and lazy and unfair. But what if you are fighting new type enemies in a solo campaign mode, and they have input reading, and they can predict some of your attacks and avoid them? But you can also do the same thing to them. Is like, you'll get some choreographed...
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. Almost like... I don't know how much in a Gundam game you would need some sort of like counter button where it helps with like parrying, or just in terms of like if it's close combat, like could you predict an enemy movement and kind of position yourself to like in slow motion, because it reminds me of the RoboCop game when you do these breaches where you breach through a wall or door, it goes into slow-mo so you can headshot everybody.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Another thing would be cool too is, as a new type, and maybe we've talked about different new type abilities, but what if it also does something where you can get a sense of the units in battle? For instance, you can tell who's more scared, so it'd be an easier fight.
Yeah.
You can tell who the leader is, so if you take them out, it will make the other ones
demoralized
act a certain way. Or by them seeing you in your mobile suit, it scares them. I think there's some.
Yeah. There's some potential there for sure.
Oh
man, Char Aznable sucks in this game.
Yeah, and another thing too that I find really big, but I don't know if other people do, is the music.
Yeah.
The music has always been good in these Gundam games, which is crazy, and it's good in the shows. I'm a big music person, and I typically don't always find music good just because I'm playing a game I like. Like I can easily, like the new Mario Wonder has maybe a couple neat tunes, but mostly it's not good music, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think
even
you mentioned
Sonic
that
Superstars?
on a Blue Gamer stream.
Yeah.
It just doesn't resonate with you. And maybe it's one of those things where you and I've talked about this before as well, where it's like sometimes creativity flourishes in limitations, right?
Yeah.
Some of those, like I caught myself listening to old Mega Man 3 tracks the other day, and I was like,
sweet.
These are such earworms. Like, they stick with you for decades.
Yeah.
I find myself humming some of them in the car sometimes, and it's like, what is it about some of these old chip tunes that, is it just because we listened to them so much that they got ingrained in us, or is there something about them that is inherently...
I think it's like you're saying, there's these limitations with the hardware they're using, so they have to try to configure what's a unique soundbite I can get out of this and then repeat it. And that's the thing. So with these modern games, and I think Sonic 4, which came out, I think almost 10 years ago by now or more, had this issue too. It's like when you're making a classic style game and it's limitless what you can do with the music, it's almost like their limitless ability to make it sound like a specific way instead of just make it sound how cool you can make it.
Yeah.
But that's what they do with the Mario games. They they're making it fit within a specific mold. So then within that, they're just trying to hit the beats of making it sound like something, not just make it sound unique.
Yeah.
And it's like that, yeah, with Sonic Superstars especially. The drums is just the Genesis snare sound that Sonic 4 did so much of, and it's very interesting.
Right. And those evoke that feeling of that particular game.
Yeah. And then that's so to compare it with Mario Kart went all out with its music. It wasn't trying to sound like a SNES Mario Kart. They had a full orchestra for some of the songs. They had more jazzy stuff. They just went all out to make cool music in Mario Kart, not to try to sound like Mario Kart. Whereas Mario Wonder, they're just trying to sound like classic Mario, which is not bad, but that's where, yeah.
See,
I don't
know.
Music's just such a big deal to me for some reason. I don't know. Like Castlevania. Lately, I've been playing a ton of Castlevania because the music is so good.
Nice.
And the games are.
Well, that doesn't hurt for sure.
Oh, that was cool.
So we're gonna see if clearly using Garma was a mistake on my part, or at least I didn't use him to the best of his ability, because I just got killed as Garma. All right. Why am I stuck? Again, these are some of the... Oh. Dang. So, one of those downsides of using the DOMs and zipping around like that is that they do have a turn speed that is higher than most other units. And so what happens is, normally when you hit back with like a regular mobile suit, you do that thing that I was doing a lot with the Gundam, which is jumping backwards. When you do it with a Dom, you turn around and expose your back to the enemy. So...
Yeah, I mean, I love its skaty nature, that it can just like skate around.
Exactly.
So yeah, Tron Missing No One, talking about, and Dan Vince talking about how consistently good Castlevania music is. And I talked about it on my last Blue Gamer stream, but yeah, I bought the vinyl for Rondo of Blood and Dracula X.
Nice.
Which, because it was like the first CD based Castlevania, so it had the first like real music, and it even says like on the game, it's like
has real music
quality. Yeah. Yeah. I loved that time when like games were, it was like Sega CD and PC. I'd never had a TurboGrafx 16 or PC Engine, but like Sega CD and PC, when games would come out and then you could listen to the music, the soundtracks on it. I loved that.
Yeah. So you guys are going to hate me, but I actually never played a Castlevania except for the 3D one that was on the N64, if you guys remember that.
Wow. Well, I mean...
Which had some pretty
It's not
sweet...
a terrible game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it had some pretty sweet mechanics, like with the whip and everything.
Yeah. Dude, then I feel like... And it's on PlayStation to download, and I think it's like $5.
Oh, really?
Recently, Symphony of the Night. You need to play that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. So music, ammo / save management, if that's a thing, really. What else have we discussed that is, new type stuff? There's got to be some kind of new type stuff.
Yeah, the deliberate movement. It's hard to say feel like a mech. So it's like it's hard to say to someone, oh, it needs to feel like a mech. I think you have to be more specific and say deliberate movement.
Feels like a Gundam.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think that was something that that Ollie Barter had mentioned as well, is that he had gotten feedback that mech games were not good, and that one of the examples of a bad mech game was 0081, is that they didn't like some developers didn't like that style of mech game. And I'm like, I mean, are they looking for something more like a Mech Warrior? Because those are way stiffer and clunkier. Well, I don't want to use the word clunky, but like you said, it's like there's a difference between deliberate movement and tanky movement. And I think Mech Warrior at that point, it's tanky movement, right? It's not.
It is. It's true tank controls. It's the idea that you are piloting someone that's piloting something. Like it's like I don't know how to explain that, but like with Rise from the Ashes, I really feel like I am someone that is piloting my. I think if I even remember correctly, doesn't it do a little bit of parallax as you're moving, like within? So it's almost giving you that feeling of being inside.
Yeah,
Um,
which is very cool.
yeah, Yeah, it's just I feel like that, and that's why I'm into Gundam. It started with these giant robots, so I feel like that needs to be a feeling that, like when I played on Saturn, I'm playing that side scroller of 0079 they made. That in no way feels like a Gundam game, but it's just that your side scroller Amuro in an RX-78 is playing the music as you're just taking out people. So it's like, okay, this is fun, but
Right.
I would never say that is
Yeah,
a
the
Gundam
definitive
game. I
Gundam
mean, the best Gundam
experience.
game.
And I think that that's
Yeah.
probably something that gets lost in translation, especially like, like you said, it's hard to communicate nuanced ideas in 280 characters or less. But,
Yeah.
you know, that's not to say that there's no good Gundam games. I think that, like I said, with New Type Seiji, is like there's a Gundam game out there for everybody, because just by the
Yeah.
nature of there being so many games that have been reskinned as Gundam games, you're gonna find something, unless you're looking for like, a football game that just happens to have Gundams, like
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I
Madden
know.
Madden UC 0087 or something like that.
That'd be crazy. It reminds me, I think when I think of best mech combat that has worked for me personally,
hmm
it's Lost Planet 1 and 2.
I'm glad
Um,
that you brought up
that
Lost Planet, because I love that game series.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the third one is not bad. It's just completely different, and you're in like a giant mech that is a little slower. But the first two did a good job of like you find a mech and you go in it, and then you can attach parts. But it has that style of movement that's different than when you're on foot.
Right.
And
And
I
it's
remember, yeah, playing Lost Planet to me, that was to me at the time the best mech game because others didn't. Even the ones that are like Mech Warrior that are kind of clunky, as we said, tank controls.
hmm
It's still very basic. Like shoot that, just don't get hit. And
yeah.
it's like okay, well, because yeah, I played one of I think Mech Warrior 5 recently or something, and nah, it's a little too basic.
Yeah. Now, I didn't play Armored Core 6, but you obviously really enjoyed it, and a lot of people really enjoyed it. Now, when I've watched gameplay videos and I've watched, your streams and other people's streams of playing it, I'm like, that to me, it's a cool mech game, but I don't think that it feels like Gundam. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I like it. I think it's fun. It wouldn't even be in my top 5 games of the year, to be honest.
Wow.
Um, but it it's fun. It's just it's more of just like a third person shooter that just has a mechanic of how to be a first person shooter. It's just that you're in a mech, so you can change the weapons out. But it's so zippy and fast, like how you move around and stuff that a lot of times I'm not feeling like there's this stress of being in a mech. It reminds me a lot of the Souls games, and I think it's more of it's whatever I have kitted myself to be. Now I'm going to use its mechanics in the way I want to then take out the boss.
Yeah.
And whereas the standard levels are just easy, you just go around and shoot people, and the bosses are the hard part of that.
Yeah,
Um,
always.
yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. I've been thinking about the game of the year this year for me, and
Yeah, can we talk about RoboCop being snubbed?
yeah, I think that it's weird because I think it's because of the IP and it didn't have a huge marketing campaign
mm-hmm.
that people don't. I really think when things are called out as game of the year, it has to do with the marketing campaigns it's had, the property that it is. You know, because a lot of times there are things that I think should be acknowledged that aren't. Like I think Double Dragon Gaiden kind of revolutionizes pushing forward, doing this, the 2D brawler combat
Yeah,
while having modernized roguelike stuff to it.
I would agree with that.
It
And and I think that a
whereas
lot of those,
Zelda,
is a 2D game ever going to be nominated for Game of the Year ever
yeah,
again?
anymore, yeah, it might not be because it's not like cool cutting edge, but
Right.
like Tears of the Kingdom, like that's cool for what it is and what it does, but I'm not like, oh, that this Zelda game is game of the year. Like I
It
almost
also
don't.
didn't even revolutionize the stuff that you could do in Zelda.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm trying to get at. It's almost like they wanted to use the Zelda world to kind of have fun physics mechanics for people to play. Not that it was like this new Zelda game, but to be honest, anytime a Zelda game is made within the same generation, kind of, sort of,
Mhm.
even though Breath of the Wild came on Wii U, usually it's like an add-on. And
It
Tears of the
glorified
Kingdom,
DLC.
yeah, even though it's bigger than Breath of the Wild, technically,
Oh yeah,
because it
3
had
times as
going
big.
way up
Got
and
all that
down.
verticality.
Yeah, and the mechanics you were going with is just the physics, you know.
Yeah, and
And then even Mario, like I I think I would probably say Mario Wonder might be in my top 5. Only
even with
because
the
of how
bad music?
challenging they made some of it. What's that?
I said even with the bad music?
Yeah, even with the bad music. No, it's how challenging they made some of it. I was really surprised. Um,
Man, see, this is one of these missions that I'm always going to struggle with because it is so combat focused. There is really there's nothing you can do to optimize the route that you take because the objective is to get to the target, protect the tanks, and you're being hit from 3 sides. And I think that there's several
oh,
missions in 0081 that are like this, right? You and I have played those ones where
yeah.
it's like you just have to get to the tanks and defend them from everyone who comes at you. Whereas, a lot of times in other levels in Zeonic Front, if you know ahead of time, like, I mean, one of my favorite missions is the one where you have to do research on the white base. And so you have to go and make visual contact with the Gundam, the gun tank, and the gun cannon, and also the white base itself. You just have to make visual contact, and that's the mission. You get bonus
Oh, that's pretty
points
neat.
if you actually fight them without dying.
Oh, wow.
So there is a way to do that, and the way that I do it is by managing the routes that I take, and by sacrificing a couple of my allies. What I'll do is I'll send one ally out within the Gundam's, like, I guess, suspicion range, right? Because you've seen how, like, the enemies change colors, like the targeting reticles change colors when
Yeah.
you see them. Blue is they're just on patrol mode. Yellow is they are suspicious. They're going to come investigate, which this is pretty advanced AI for PS2 era. Like, let's
Yeah.
be
That
clear.
is pretty cool.
And then red, of course, they are going to attack you. So if you can get the Gundam into that suspicion range, you get him to come out, and then you come behind him, hit him with a smoke grenade so that you can get within range, and then you just stand behind him until the smoke clears, because you also can't attack if there's a smoke grenade in place. Stand behind the Gundam long enough, and then swipe it with a, well, I prefer the heat sword from the Goof, but you can use
Yeah.
any melee attack and it will do the trick. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, I gotta. But how do the unlocks work for this? Do you have to like beat a mission and if it has a certain mobile suit that unlocks for you, or?
It's like, I wish that it were that easy.
Oh.
So yeah, there's specific missions that you have to get like S rankings on.
Okay.
And that's where it's, like, for instance, you unlock the Black Tri-Stars by getting an S ranking on the Odessa mission. And this is where I'm not sure. I need to do some research, but you unlock Sayla in the Gundam by actually losing. It's like if you fail enough times in the simulator, it unlocks the Gundam. because it just has pity
Oh,
on you.
yeah.
But
I
I
like
think,
that mechanic.
yeah, right. I love that kind of stuff, personally. But to unlock Amuro in the Gundam, I think that there's a particular mission that you have to get an S rank on,
Mm.
but I don't recall which one. There's
Dang,
some,
there's a lot of those simulator missions.
yeah, and there's like A routes and B routes for each of them, and the B routes obviously are
Oh,
much harder.
oh, that you know what? And that reminds me, like a recent one that I feel like we all forget, Code Fairy. You know,
Yeah,
like that is pretty fun and has a cool mission structure and is very hard, and it has the rating you got to get um on easy, medium, and hard. Um, yeah,
yeah. See, and that's again, that's another game that I think people slept on. That's
yeah,
as close to a definitive Gundam experience as I think we've gotten in the last, like, what, 10 years, something like that.
yeah. And I got to say, I think I I don't know why it didn't do that well because they've said that it didn't do well. That's why they're not even going to port it on PC. But like,
Such a shame.
I I would think it doesn't have to do with the all female cast. I don't think people would care about that. I almost think it's just the name Code Fairy. Just it's an odd name, and I don't know what it means until you play the game. But for people that don't know Gundam and they just see this Code Fairy, they might think it's a visual novel. I don't know. It just
It does
because
have
of
that
the
look to
anime
it,
look
right?
in the name. Yeah. But I just love how it had an intro music, it had animation. Um, yeah, I think Code Fairy is one of those. Um, oh yeah, being a PS4 exclusive was a bit hamper for me. That's what Temp and I agree. I think Bandai's learned from that they can't be making these games platform exclusive, which is
Hmm.
changed. As far as I know, the newer games that are going to be coming out here shortly that they haven't announced yet are multi-platform. So
Yeah. Well, and it's so much easier now that they're kind of standardizing to Unreal Engine, Unreal Engine 5.
yeah,
So like what Gundam Battle Alliance, the Gundam Metaverse files, those were all Unreal. What was the other? There was another game that was Unreal. Was it Oh my gosh, these are helicopters. Um,
been
was it
Breaker.
Gun Evo?
Oh, let me see.
I'm pretty sure Gun Evo was Unreal as well.
Yeah, Unreal Engine 4. Yeah.
So that makes it a lot easier to port to multiple platforms when you use a standardized engine like that.
Yeah. I'm glad they're doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, even that Gundam Requiem for Vengeance uses the Unreal Engine.
Yeah, that's something I was particularly excited about because that makes it, at least somewhat easier to adopt into a video game, right? And
Yeah.
isn't that what we all want? We all just want 1 year war video games.
Yeah, and it's neat that they do make these side stories that are part of different, you know, within Gundam, but like a side story. But it would be cool to just have a Zeta game with modern graphics, where
Yeah.
you just go through the story of Zeta with modern mechanics and graphics.
Yeah, and how hard would that be, right?
Yeah,
I,
I've said that too about Star Wars. Like they just need to make a game with modern graphics of Return of the Jedi.
yeah.
That would be
I mean, it
sick.
worked with the Revenge of the Sith game. That was a lot of fun.
Yes, that's a good example. Yeah.
But yeah, we are a little over time, so I figured, hey, you guys have watched me suffer through Zeonic Front enough. But I really did enjoy this conversation, and like I said, I think that
Oh yeah.
even though we were just having good fun, jabbing each other on Twitter, I do think that there is a valuable conversation to be had in the Gundam
Oh
gaming
yeah.
space about, like, yeah, we all have different opinions about what the best Gundam game is, but has there been we all have different opinions about what games featuring the title Gundam are the best game, but is there a good Gundam game? Did I phrase that
Yeah.
correctly?
Yeah. I think that's a really good question. Maybe maybe that would be a cool poll or something to do sometime, where we whittle down to best Gundam game.
We should do the brackets like we did with the best Gundam thing.
Oh,
That's
okay.
That's going to be our
Let me
exercise.
see if I can get that prepared for tomorrow, because that could be fun for tomorrow.
Yeah, game on. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for co-hosting and watching over the chat for me while I I struggled. Thank you guys for keeping the chat lively. Hopefully you enjoyed this little discussion about Gundam games and gaming in general, and where we're at as far as playing Gundam games. But thank you guys so much again. We'll see you tomorrow on the Gundam Explained show.
Yep. Talk later.
Cheers.